Greetings. This is a gripping deep dive into the explosive war of words between Richard Eden and the Sussexes, a tale of palace whispers, crumbling deals, and a couple who dared to walk away and never looked back. For nearly 6 years, the saga of Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, has been more than just royal gossip. It has become a battle for the soul of the British monarchy itself. To millions around the world, they are fearless modernizers who escaped a suffocating institution, trading gilded cages for Californian sunshine. But to Richard Eden, the formidable Daily Mail columnist who has made the Sussexes his journalistic quarry, they represent something far more sinister, a destabilizing force whose departure from the firm was never really an exit, but the opening salvo in a prolonged, corrosive campaign for relevance, revenge, and untold riches. In March 2026, Eden dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through royal circles. His article arrived with a headline designed to stop readers in their tracks. Troubling Harry and Meghan behind-the-scenes whispers from the palace. Royal officials are terrified to speak about them, but one breaks their silence to confide in me. The piece, which ignited over 1,600 furious comments, laid bare what Eden calls a clandestine plot to drag the Sussexes back into the royal fold. He has branded this shadowy strategy Project Thaw, or in earlier dispatches, Project Thor, framing it as a secret establishment operation to undo the seismic rupture of 2020. It is a narrative dripping with conspiracy, fear, and the kind of palace intrigue that has fueled royal watchers for generations. Yet beneath the breathless prose lies a deep and undeniable tension. Eden insists that a comeback is being orchestrated behind the ancient walls of Buckingham Palace, driven by the Sussexes' supposedly collapsing commercial empire. But the reality of Harry and Meghan's life in sun-drenched Montecito tells a radically different story. They are not sitting by the phone waiting for an invitation to return to royal duties. They are not packing boxes for a move back to Windsor. Instead, they are quietly, deliberately building a separate existence, one that leverages their royal titles not as a lifeline back to the institution, but as the foundation for an independent global brand that answers to no one. Richard Eden does not merely report the news. He channels the anxiety of a nervous institution. In his audio commentary accompanying the Daily Mail article, his voice carried the weight of someone who had been granted access to the palace's darkest fears. "I've been writing for months now about Project Thaw. That's the establishment plot to bring back Harry and Meghan, and that plot is really thickening now. This week, a royal source told me that things are going on behind the scenes that no one knows about, and these are words, frankly, that sent a shiver down my spine." That shiver is everything. It reveals Eden's true perspective. The Sussexes are not estranged family members deserving of compassion. They are a looming tempest, a hurricane about to make landfall on British shores once again. According to Eden, the source of this dread is Project Thaw, a coordinated effort by senior royals and their most trusted advisors to reintegrate the couple into the fold. But this is no simple family reconciliation, Eden argues. It is driven by cold, hard economics. In his own words, Harry and Meghan's royal comeback is happening, and Queen Elizabeth tried to put a stop to this mess back in 2020. Harry's grandmother, Queen Elizabeth, was absolutely adamant that Harry and Meghan couldn't achieve what they wanted and combine royal duties with money-making. But they've tried that, and it hasn't worked out as their big money deals with Spotify and Netflix have dried up. Eden's logic is brutally linear. The commercial model failed, so the Sussexes must crawl back to the monarchy to prop up their fading brand. He claims that with their Spotify and Netflix contracts reduced to ashes, the couple is now more determined than ever to emphasize their royal connections. And then come the demands. Eden alleges that Harry is quietly insisting on the reinstatement of automatic, taxpayer-funded police protection for his family when they visit the UK. He presents this not as a father's legitimate concern for safety, but as evidence of a grand re-entry strategy. He even suggests that the coming months will see Harry walking shoulder to shoulder with his father, King Charles III, at the Invictus Games in Birmingham, a symbolic image of reunion that would send a thunderclap across the globe. The fear gripping palace officials, Eden writes, is palpable. Royal officials are terrified to speak about them. But this terror, he clarifies, is not born of fear of the Sussexes themselves. It is the fear of public relations catastrophe. Courtiers find themselves trapped, speak out against the couple, and risk accusations of bullying and cruelty, remain silent, and allow what Eden sees as a dangerous conspiracy to unfold without scrutiny. Either way, the institution appears paralyzed. But pause for a moment. Look beyond the headlines. Eden paints a portrait of a couple whose commercial empire is in ruins, forced to grovel for a return to royal patronage. Yet the facts on the ground in 2026 tell a very different story. The so-called drying up of the Spotify and Netflix deals is not a sign of failure. It is the natural evolution of a sophisticated business strategy. Those initial contracts were massive, upfront investments in the Sussexes' global celebrity. When they ended, it did not spell collapse. It marked a transition. The couple moved from being passive recipients of platform money to active builders of their own production empire. Arkwell Productions is quietly developing projects. Meghan has launched a thriving lifestyle brand that speaks directly to millions of women. Harry remains fiercely dedicated to the Invictus Games, the one legacy that ties him to his military service and his mother's humanitarian spirit. Eden's framing conveniently ignores a fundamental truth. The Sussexes have said repeatedly, through spokespeople, through interviews, through every action they have taken, that they have no intention of becoming working members of the royal family again. The royal comeback is a press construct, a phantom narrative sustained by column inches, not reality. The late Queen Elizabeth II was indeed absolutely adamant that one could not combine royal duties with money-making. The Sandringham Summit of January 2020 was clear. The Sussexes would step back. They would no longer receive public funds. They would cease to represent the crown. For Eden to suggest they are now reversing that arrangement is to suggest they are admitting defeat on the very principle that led them to flee. But there is zero evidence that Harry or Meghan want to return to the rigid, suffocating structure of royal life, the endless ribbon cutting, the stifling hierarchy of courtiers, the silent obedience. What they have maintained is their connection to the royal story. That is not the same as a return to royal work. Their presence in California is not a temporary exile awaiting a pardon. It is a permanent relocation. They bought a home in Montecito. They enrolled their children in local schools. They built a network of friends, collaborators, and business partners. They integrated into the very fabric of Californian cultural life. This is not the behavior of a couple planning to uproot everything to stand silently behind the king at state dinners. Perhaps the most compelling evidence that Harry and Meghan are not orchestrating a return lies buried within Eden's own words. In his audio commentary, he asks a question that inadvertently exposes the weakness of his entire thesis. Do you think Harry and Meghan really want reconciliation with the royal family, or do they just want to get back some of that royal shine to themselves? It is a devastating admission. Eden conflates reconciliation with reinstatement. Wanting to heal a fractured relationship with one's father or brother, something Harry has publicly and painfully expressed, is not the same as wanting to return to a life of official duties. Eden's phrase, "get back some of that royal shine," is telling. He acknowledges that the couple's currency is their royal connection. But leveraging that connection is precisely what they have done since leaving. They have never hidden it. Their website, their Arkwell Foundation, their public appearances all utilize their ducal titles. They exist in a hybrid space that Eden and the palace establishment refuse to accept. They are not part of the institution, but they are of it. They use the titles, they maintain the ties, but they do so from 5,000 miles away. If the royal shine was all they wanted, they already have it. Meghan's lifestyle brand is built on her identity as the Duchess of Sussex. Harry's memoir, Spare, was marketed on his identity as the king's son. They do not need to return to Windsor to access that power. They already possess it. The idea that they would surrender the autonomy they fought so hard for, the ability to speak openly, to earn their own income, to live beyond the daily scrutiny of the British tabloid press, is not just illogical, it's absurd. To truly understand why Harry and Meghan are not coming back, one must abandon the palace whispers and look at what they are actually doing. In California, they have constructed a life that revolves around their children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet. Harry has spoken with aching honesty about his desire to give his children the one thing he never had, a normal childhood. Moving back to the UK would plunge them directly into the very media maelstrom that Harry has spent millions in legal fees trying to escape. It would put them back in the goldfish bowl, where every outing, every outfit, every innocent interaction is dissected and weaponized. Meghan, meanwhile, has built an entire commercial and philanthropic infrastructure rooted in the American landscape. Her lifestyle brand is aimed squarely at a U.S. audience. Her work with the Archwell Foundation tackles issues like parental leave and online safety, issues that resonate deeply in the American political and cultural context. To abandon this for a return to the UK would be to dismantle years of painstaking work. Eden's dismissal of their commercial ventures, they've tried that and it hasn't worked out, rings hollow. By any objective measure, the Sussexes remain one of the most high-profile couples on the planet. Their Netflix documentary shattered viewership records. Harry's book became the fastest-selling non-fiction book in history. The fact that they are no longer producing content for Spotify does not signify failure. It signifies the end of a specific contractual relationship in an industry where such deals are increasingly rare. Moreover, Eden's Project Thaw narrative depends entirely on the assumption that the royal family is eager to have them back. But his own reporting suggests deep, paralyzing ambivalence. If the palace were actively plotting a grand reunion, why are officials terrified to speak? The fear suggests division, factions that want reconciliation battling factions that view the Sussexes as an existential threat. The truth is likely far less dramatic than Eden's spine-tingling language suggests. What is happening behind the scenes is almost certainly standard royal family business. Discussions about security arrangements for Harry's visits, efforts to manage the public narrative, attempts to avoid further acrimony. This is not a plot to reinstate the Sussexes as working royals, it is damage control. Eden's economic argument that because the Spotify and Netflix deals dried up, the Sussexes must return to the monarchy, ignores the fundamental transformation of the media industry. The era of massive, exclusive platform deals is waning. The Sussexes' move toward independent production aligns with broader industry trends. In California, they are building a family brand. They are not dependent on any single corporate partner. Meghan's lifestyle ventures, Harry's Invictus leadership, and their joint philanthropic work provide multiple revenue streams and avenues for impact. This diversified portfolio is actually more stable than relying on two giant corporate deals. If anything, the most lucrative aspects of their brand, Harry's memoir, the Netflix documentary, were built on their estrangement from the crown, not their proximity to it. Their commercial value has always come from their insider perspective on the world's most famous institution. If they returned as working royals, they would be silenced by palace protocol. They would no longer be able to speak candidly. Their commercial value would plummet. The royal comeback narrative also ignores constitutional reality. There is no mechanism for a part-time working royal, the very proposal the late Queen rejected. To return would mean accepting the same constraints as the Prince and Princess of Wales. No independent commercial income, no media deals, complete subservience to palace communication strategy. After everything that has happened, the Oprah interview, the Netflix series, the book, it is virtually impossible to imagine Harry or Meghan submitting to that structure again. Richard Eden's reporting on Project Thaw is a masterclass in narrative construction. He takes standard, behind-the-scenes palace chatter, discussions about security, family visits, public relations, and weaves them into a conspiracy of return. His language is designed to alarm. Troubling whispers sent a shiver down my spine. Royal officials are terrified. But step back from the hyperbole, and the evidence for an actual return dissolves into mist. Harry and Meghan have built a life in California that meets their stated priorities: financial independence, personal privacy, the freedom to pursue their own passions. They have not applied to resume royal duties. They have not moved back to the UK. They have not enrolled their children in British schools. What they have done is what estranged family members often do. They have maintained their identity while establishing a separate life. They continue to use their titles because those titles are part of who they are. They continue to visit the UK because Harry's family is there. They continue to speak about their royal experiences because that is their lived history. None of this constitutes a comeback. Eden's question, reconciliation or royal shine, misses the point entirely. They have both. They have the shine without the constraints. They have an open door to reconciliation without surrendering their autonomy. The troubling whispers from the palace are not whispers of a secret plot to bring the Sussexes back. They are the whispers of an institution still struggling to comprehend a couple who escaped its orbit and succeeded on their own terms. The palace officials who are terrified to speak are not terrified of Harry and Meghan. They are terrified of a reality they cannot control, a reality in which two people walked away from the most famous family in the world and, contrary to every prediction, did not come crawling back. Harry and Meghan are not returning to the royal family. They are happy in California. They are building their own lives. And for Richard Eden and the institution he channels, that independence remains the most troubling development of all.